and what historic times they are. I mean, you have an unbelievable right-wing, misogynist, racist, xenophobic, bigot, billionaire in the White House. You have, we've had almost an apocalyptic summer of climate change with, symptoms of climate change with Harvey and Irma, pummeling island after island. And we've also seen, as Brother Cornel West said, this grotesque inequality. Now 6 people own as much wealth as the bottom half of the entire world's population. That's 3.5 billion people. But at the same time, we're also seeing historic times for other reasons. We have seen incredible struggles against the oil industry by the No Dabble movement led by indigenous people and the environmental movement. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement, the first signs in decades of a real rebellion by young black people and other people of color, young people of color. And I think more than anything else, really the indications of the times we are living in are 2 things. One is that even though Trump was elected, look at the fact that he has no mandate. We saw the largest ever day of protest in US history with the Women's March, where more than 1 million people, I think several million people marched on the streets. We have seen active and courageous opposition to the neo-Nazis. We saw how we tremendously outnumbered, the left tremendously outnumbered the neo-Nazis in Boston and shut their attempt to march on the streets. We shut it down. And more than anything else, we're seeing in America, which has been the belly of the capitalist beast, the most popular politician being this guy who calls himself openly as a democratic socialist. And he's the most popular politician not just among the ones who have been denigrated as the Bernie bros, all the white males here, It's not just among them, it's among black people, Latinos, women. These are all the oppressed sections of our society who recognize that the message of a political revolution against the billionaire class has been a long time coming, and we want to fight for a decent vision of society. And I think that's the most important message we should receive from the times we live in, which is that yes, there is a current of racism and also something much scarier, that if the extreme right-wing ideology, which has been emboldened by the Trump election, and if given any more room, it will truly take on much more horrific forms. But the reality is that the majority of America is not on their side. The majority of America, especially young people, truly have a progressive vision for the kind of society they want to build. And so it's no surprise that the question that is the most immediate and uppermost on people's minds is, how do we defeat Trump and the right wing and the billionaire agenda? How do we do that? And I think that's the most important question for us too, as we talk about building a new party for working people, for the 99%. Defeating Trump obviously will take for us to stand in solidarity, as we already have, in defending the interests of everybody, every community that is in the crosshairs of Trump's attacks, as was already stated, trans people, LGBTQ community as a whole, immigrants who are now under attack, and everybody who really wants to politically mobilize against Donald Trump. But sisters and brothers, this is a bigger question. We are not going to be able to defeat Trump, much less make sure that the right has no increased room to build in. And as Brother Cornell said, there is a void that the right wing is filling. There's a void that Trump is filling. If we want to make sure that that void is no longer occupied and never again occupied by the right, then for us, it's a question. For us on the left, it's also a question of going on the offense. The reason Trump won is something that we have to take into account. Trump is a con man. He is a liar. But remember what he said on the campaign trail. He said he was for the forgotten men and women. He talked about jobs. He spoke to that every disenfranchised and disenchanted layer in our society, which is poor people, people who've been left out of any measure of prosperity, people who have lost their jobs because of NAFTAs, destructive force, and so on and so on. And the reason he was able to fill that void was because Clinton simply did not convince voters that she was anything other than steeped in the Wall Street agenda.
Yeah.
And as probably would have seen a different outcome if Bernie had run all the way to the general election, as Socialist Alternative and others were calling on him. So, sisters and brothers, to truly defeat Trump and the larger right wing, we cannot simply be on the defense, on the back foot. We have to go on the offense. But look at concrete examples. Well, a very concrete example of going on the offense is the question of single payer and Trump's attacks on the Affordable Care Act. What is the single most effective way we can, just defeat completely, forever and ever, the attempt to destroy affordable care as it is right now, the Obamacare? It's to fight for something better and win it, which is single payer health care. But to do that, our movements not only have to be much more powerful than they are now, our movements will need political representation. We will need to challenge corporate power, not only in our workplaces and so on, but also in the political arena. And that leads us to the central question of our People's Convergence Conference, which is, what kind of party do working people, young people, people who are struggling in our society, what kind of party do we need? We need a party that will fight alongside social movements, not only for $15 an hour and single-payer healthcare, but go beyond that, fighting for full legalization and civil rights for all immigrants, ending police brutality, for indigenous rights. But for all of this, what is the basic requirement? The one, lowest common denominator requirement we need in that party. That party cannot be wedded in any way to corporate power. Completely disengages, refuses to take any corporate cash, and Bernie Sanders showed on a very grand scale something that we had shown in Seattle already, which is that you can run successful campaigns and fight for working people, win elections on the basis of taking not a penny of corporate cash and really mobilizing, energizing people on the streets, sending them door knocking and so on. The question we have to grapple as we talk about the question of a new party, sisters and brothers, is that the many people, the millions who have supported Bernie's campaign and are still energized about doing something, they would like to see a party like that. I don't think the debate is about the nature of that party. The debate is, how do we get there? What is the, what is the path towards that? And I think we have to take into account the fact that the majority of the people who are on our side as far as the vision of society are not ready yet in a very clear manner to build a new party. I think many, many millions of people still want to test out whether or not the Democratic Party can be that party. So how do we deal with this? I think it's very important for us to not, those of us who have already reached that conclusion that the Democratic Party cannot be that party, I've reached that conclusion. I'm very open about it. I don't lie to people and sow illusions in the Democratic Party in anyone's minds. But at the same time, I have to grapple with the fact that most people are probably still struggling with that concept, want to try it out in 2018, want to try it out in 2020. How do we deal with that? Number one, we cannot isolate ourselves from all those hundreds of thousands and millions. We have to have a very friendly and respectful conversation and debate with them where we don't lie to them, we are honest, we are not coy about our politics, but at the same time we meet them where they are, because they are going to be the major forces of this new party that we want to build. And so we have to be very careful that we urge them to come with us and so on. I just wanted to, just a couple more points, Brian. Yesterday at the rally, one of the reporters who was there asked me, don't you think this is the exact wrong time for you guys to be talking about this? Because don't we need a united effort? I mean, it was let's face it, this is a serious question on people's minds. Don't you think we need to be united against Trump? Which isn't the left being divisive by doing these events like this? I think it's a serious question, and it deserves a serious answer. And what is the response to that? The response to that is, Absolutely, we want maximum unity against Trump, but it's a question of what kind of unity. I think Brother Connor really hit the nail on the head when he said that when we talk about coalitions, that solidarity has to be based on integrity. It has to be a principled unity, and such a unity, and we have to be open with people who want to test out the Democratic Party, that unity has to mean unity among ordinary working people who want to fight corporations and Wall Street. Unity does not mean going along with what Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi want.
Yeah.
And in the process of building that unity, we have to bring up concrete strategies and tactics that can unite people. So just to end with this concrete example, I guarantee you, sisters and brothers, when we go out there and start talking about the need for a new party, we will run into a lot of people who will agree with us about a lot of the things that we're talking about, how society is broken. They don't need explanations of what what we have on offer is not working. But they will probably, many of them, disagree with exactly what to do next. So let's make it concrete. You know, for those people who are not ready to immediately break from the Democrats and, launch a new party, let's ask them concretely. Look at the movement for single-payer health care in California. Was that not a brilliant, inspiring example of unity or not? A lot of activists, the nurses union, Bernie cracks, a lot of independents, probably a lot of people who voted for Hillary holding their nose, they were all supportive of single-payer healthcare. What was the single obstacle to that?
A Democrat.
It was the Democratic establishment, right? So let's make it concrete. You're not ready to start a new party? Let's talk about actual things. And Marty Harrison, who's a nurse in Philadelphia and a union organizer, spoke about this in the earlier discussion on healthcare. She said, why don't we, our movement, the nurses unions, all the other labor movement members who want to be part of it, Bernie Grants, our revolution, everybody who wants to fight for single-payer healthcare, I don't care whom you voted for last year. If you want to fight for single-payer healthcare, why don't we issue a serious challenge to Rendon? Let's tell him, you are the obstacle behind this, to this. So we are going to build a powerful movement to bring you down. We are going to run a serious challenger, serious independent campaign against Rendon when he's next up for election. I'm not sure when that is, but let's make sure that it is a concrete challenge against Democrats. And we don't want to just run pressure campaigns. We are not a pressure group. We are fighting for a different vision of society. So if we run a campaign, we should run to win.
Yes.
And I will guarantee you, will put the fear of God in the establishment Democrats. And that will be a starting point in many ways. And the most important way it will be a starting point is because it will bring a real inspiring sort of electrification for all the people who are grappling with differences on concrete questions of which party to support and all of that. But they will agree on this. They will agree that in order to fight single-payer healthcare, we need to fight corporate Democrats, and this will be a starting point. And if we were to win, I'll end on this. If we were to win single-payer healthcare in any state, especially a major state like California, it will be an earth-shattering impact of that. So let's fight for what we have. Yes!